son was in second grade. I went to have lunch with him, and there was a red light on. They couldn't talk during lunchtime. And even though I came for his
Those days.
birthday,
Yeah.
yeah, they said, and then every day the kids were losing recess because a child would act out.
Mm.
And one day my son looked up at me with his beautiful blue eyes and he said, Mom, I just can't take the pressure.
Mm.
And he was in second grade.
From the Florida Parent Educators Association, home of the largest homeschool convention in America, this is the Not by the Book podcast. I'm your host, FPEA Chairman Suzanne Nunn, and together we will hear from guests who share their journey to who and where they are today. Each one of them at some point left the expected path, ripped the page out of the book that says you have to do it like this, and made their own way. I hope these conversations inspire you as much as they do me. Today is a great conversation with Rachel Kovac, author of the new book, Their Future is Shining Bright, a guide to homeschooling in high school and equipping your child for success and fulfillment in adulthood. Rachel and I delve into how education is deeply personal and how important it is for families to see that there isn't just one right way to homeschool, even in the high school years. There are many good paths, and Rachel is passionate about helping each family find the one that fits their child best. The journey can be challenging, but it's also wildly rewarding and full of possibility. Listen with me now.
So I think as a child, I was always very curious about the way that things worked and about nature and about God. And I was filled with such a sense of wonder. And I
Mm,
think that that's something that I feel like I still carry with me that has made homeschooling such a joy when you're filled with wonder. And there were ways as a child that regular schooling, probably maybe a textbook style, didn't always connect with my spirit. So
mm,
now to be homeschooling my own children and to be able to study these works of art or even going back and looking at math or science with this sense of wonder
mm.
has felt like I'm re-educating that small child.
Yeah. And so when you were young,
Mhm.
well, where did you grow up? What was your
I
family like?
Yeah, so I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up on the border of Wisconsin and Minnesota,
Mm,
and I lived in a small rural town. My dad is a pastor, and some of my aunts were first generation homeschoolers.
okay.
And this was when it was very unusual, where
Mm-hmm.
you didn't want to go out during the day because it could raise questions.
Of
And
course. Yeah.
there were also concerns about, is this actually legal? Or
Mm,
what's going to happen with our kids? So even though I went to a public school, I was able to witness my cousins being raised as first generation homeschoolers, which I'm sure left a deep impression on me.
oh, yeah. Of course. Did you have a lot of time with them? Did you spend much time with your cousins?
Yes, we all lived the same street for a while. And then after that, we were only 1 mile apart. And I was the oldest by about 10 years. And so, in
Okay.
a way, it was almost like being an aunt, not quite, but because then there were kids that were even younger. And so, for some of my cousins, we have a 20-year age difference.
Mm,
And so, it was really cool. I felt like I was mentored by my aunts who were learning so much along the way. And I always say, when it comes to the first generation homeschoolers, we're standing on the shoulders of giants because that was such a learning curve
it
for them.
was. It was huge. Yeah. I agree. So you had an opportunity then to spend a lot of time probably outside and exploring nature because you were very interested in that.
Mhm.
What about your siblings? Did you have a lot of siblings that lived in your household?
I only have two siblings, but my mom had six. She had
Oh,
six sisters, and most live nearby. And so I have a lot of cousins. And I really looked up to my grandmother as the mother of seven children. And
mm,
now I have six children of my own.
yeah.
And I'm so grateful because I love having a big family. I love being a mom. And it's just a dream come true.
Yeah. So you did have experience with large families kind of and how they functioned and work together. What other interests did you have as a small child, or even in your later elementary, middle school years? Did you spend much time focused on any particular hobbies or interests that you had then?
Well, it's interesting that you would ask that because, yes, my aunt was on one income and things were tight and they were making homeschooling a priority. And so she would have me babysit in exchange for sewing lessons.
Oh,
So she taught me how to sew. And
very
then,
nice.
yes, and then I would babysit for the amount of hours so she could do the things that she wanted to do, like maybe go grocery shopping without her kids. And
Mhm.
that is something that I have continued to carry into my life. I love sewing. I used to make most of my kids' clothing.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
also, what they would do is they would sing around the piano, sing hymns. And
Mm.
we still have that tradition of singing in my family life. It's a part of our family culture. So my kids all play instruments, and it's just been really amazing.
Did you play an instrument as a child?
Actually, too, I played the piano and the trumpet.
Oh, a trumpet. That's fun. That sounds like school band. I was in
Yeah.
school band and played saxophone. So it's
Oh,
kind of like
wow.
one of the instruments you don't usually just play by yourself somewhere.
Were
So
you in a jazz band?
I was absolutely.
Same with me.
So that's fine. Well, when did you start that? You were involved, you said, in public schools. So when
Mhm.
did you start becoming involved in band and other interests?
Really from middle school all the way through high school.
Yeah,
And then I would
that's
play in our church too, like for those patriotic hymns and things that
yes.
needed a trumpet.
That's fantastic. Yes, we did the
Yeah.
same. Absolutely. So you moved into high school, had some interest in band. What were your thoughts about like what it was going to look like for you when you graduated? What were your next steps in your mind?
Well, I always knew I wanted to be a mother, but I went on to college at UW-Madison and got a degree in finance.
Mm,
And then while I was there, I met my husband. We were
mhm.
attending the same church and on the same worship team.
Oh, fantastic.
And he is a bit older than me. He had been married before, and his first wife died of brain cancer. So
Mm,
he was coming out of a situation where he was grieving. And yeah, we just fell madly in love. He had been married for 12 years, thought he was never going to have children because her cancer was related to estrogen. And so getting
mm.
pregnant would have been terminal for her. And then he never thought he would be a dad. And
Oh,
now we
wow.
have 6 children together. So,
That's amazing. So you all met while you were in school and you were studying finance. You said, did you ever move into a career in finance, or did you get married and move more towards your family as your focus? What happened?
well, I did work at the University of Wisconsin in organizational behavior as a teaching assistant and research assistant.
Oh,
So I've
wow.
always cared a lot about education. I was always interested in alternative forms of education. And then when I became a mom, I realized I loved motherhood so much. I did nothing with my finance degree, not to say that it wasn't worth it. And
Absolutely.
I became a doula and a lactation counselor.
That's amazing. So, like, that's not something you normally just fall into. So, let's stop there for a second. How many children had you had before you became a doula?
So I had one and I had kind of a traumatic birth experience, even though I did have a doula. And then I had my second, and everything went so well. It was like my dream birth. And then I knew I want to be a doula and help women who want this experience. It's not that I ever believed there's one right way to give birth or anything like that, but
Right.
just to support women. And then I was working at a transitional home for women who were homeless or, yeah, for women who were homeless and needed a place to stay while they were pregnant or new moms. And I could
Mm,
see that they really didn't have the breastfeeding support that they needed. And even though I was a doula, I didn't know how to really bridge the gap on lactation counseling, even though I had breastfed my own kids, but I only had my own experience. So I got a certification from Georgetown University Hospital in lactation counseling.
hmm.
And then I worked there as a postpartum doula one day a week, and I supported them and also did lactation counseling there.
What an amazing opportunity though, just to feed into, I mean, even mothers who may not experience crisis during that time, but for you to have an opportunity to do that for people who were in critical situations. How long did you do that?
Well, I only did it for a few years because I was motivated after we adopted our third child from Ethiopia. My husband grew up in West Africa. He was a missionary kid. He grew up in the jungle, and then he was sent to Baptist boarding school when he was only 13 years old.
Oh,
So
wow.
he has lived away from home since he was 13.
Mm,
We had adopted from Ethiopia, but I started to see I really was passionate about wanting to keep families together. And so that was the impetus for wanting to do the work that I did. But then I became pregnant with our fourth child, and I could just see what it was taking away from my family was too much. And also, as much as, sometimes I think we can come in and be young and idealistic and want to save the world. And I could see the importance of family. Like when the family structure isn't there, it's really hard to overcome issues. And so I just felt convicted like this is my season that I want to be focused on my family and having four small children, 6 and under. I just felt like I needed to be all in on that.
that makes sense. Because that's an
Yeah.
all in kind of job, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
that's amazing though. And I think that I'm curious with four small children, at that point, had you made a decision to homeschool your children already? Or were you
Actually,
just
no.
okay?
No, like, you meet the people that are like, I was homeschooling since the time my child was in utero, you know?
Yes, yes.
That was not me. So my kids were at we're now in Texas. My kids were at this beautiful learning through play preschool, and it was so holistic and lovely. But then when they moved on into grade school, there was just so much homework. And
Oh,
they
yeah.
would go to school all day and then come home with a stack of homework. That's the equivalent of what you might do in a homeschooling day.
Mhm, mhm.
And they were so tired. When my son was in second grade, I went to have lunch with him and there was a red light on. They couldn't talk during lunchtime.
Oh
And
my
even
goodness.
though I came for his
Those days.
birthday,
Yeah.
yeah, they said, and then every day the kids were losing recess because a child would act out.
Mm,
And one day my son looked up at me with his beautiful blue eyes and he said, Mom, I just can't take the pressure.
mm.
And he was in second grade.
That's crazy. But
And
so honest, I mean, it's just an honest statement from a kid.
so then I was still terrified to homeschool.
Mm. That's so funny.
But I feel like it's God directing our path, right?
Mhm.
And ultimately, things happened through a series of somewhat unfortunate events. I was led down the path of homeschooling or to the path of homeschooling. And then my husband thought that he was going to be getting a job in London. And I thought, we'll do it temporarily. We'll do it
Okay.
temporarily.
Yeah.
And I can do that. But like, I can't be all in on this homeschooling thing. I'm afraid, I have fear.
Yeah.
And then that fell through at the last minute. And then some other things happened. And I realized, okay, I can try this, but I'm going to start in the summer. So if I can't
Mm.
handle it, I can still send them back to school in the
You still
fall.
have a you still have an out.
But now
That's
it's been
great.
the best choice of my life. I love it. I have gotten the education of a lifetime having a child who's 21 and also 19 in college, two children in
Mhm.
college. I'm just so grateful.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, so you landed there kind of hesitantly, but when and where during your homeschool journey did you learn more about how you wanted to approach it from the perspective of including more things like, just the arts and history? Because I know those are passions for you. Like, what took you from, because back then everything was boxed curriculums and traditional, there wasn't a lot of people out there pushing you into thinking outside of even the homeschooling box, right? Of how that would look. And when did you find that rhythm for your family, and how did you come to that?
So when I first started homeschooling, coming from Madison, Wisconsin originally, I knew about Waldorf education and about
Mhm.
Montessori education. I had never heard of Charlotte Mason education,
Okay.
or I probably would have started with Charlotte Mason.
Mhm.
But I knew, okay, I don't agree with the founding principles of Rudolf Steiner, who founded the Waldorf education,
Mhm.
but I did love what he did with notebooking and bringing in an artistic element into the curriculum. And so I started using a Waldorf curriculum that was really similar to, because it's based on the ideals of that which is good and beautiful and true,
Right.
it's similar in many ways to Charlotte Mason or to a classical curriculum. I raised my children on a lot of fairy tales and fables where their
Mhm.
imagination, moral imagination is being ignited and they're learning through story.
Yeah.
And then that moved into, the watercolor painting the Old Testament stories
Mhm.
and making beeswax figures of some of the other Hebrew stories. And then it culminates in Roman history with the life of Christ and how he was born into the time and place when Rome was in power, and yet Christ comes in a manger in poverty.
Mhm.
And just the beauty of that. Still, I don't agree with like the underpinning philosophy and have moved now to doing things my own way, not really feeling like I need a curriculum per se,
Right.
and leaning more towards Charlotte Mason. I think there are a lot of similarities between the
Mhm.
two.
And did you have any concerns about that? Like, if you came from a normally traditional background with education, sometimes you're worried, as a parent about whether or not this is going to work and get you to college with your kids. Or, there is a little bit of an element of fear sometimes with going into the more natural way of education. And, you stop that. People will stop it after elementary school. They'll kind of pull back, and now we need to really focus on the books and things like that. Where did you find your freedom to continue to do the things? Where did you find confidence in what you were doing? I guess is a better way of asking that, along the way, so that you weren't maybe questioning yourself so much.
I think this is where I can thank also primarily my first generation homeschooling aunts,
Hmm.
because what they said is if a child can know how to read well, and if they can do math,
Hmm.
the world is their oyster.
Hmm.
And so I did not ever compromise on math, which is something that sometimes people who lead more natural do.
Hmm.
I did always make my kids do math, and we did Singapore math. They did a really rigorous math curriculum, and we read
Hmm.
a lot. We read a lot. And it's interesting because I didn't do a lot of formal science with my kids. We
Yeah.
spent a lot of time in nature. We read books. We'd buy ant farms and grow
Hmm.
gardens and hike and raise chickens. But I didn't do textbook sciences or anything like that.
Yeah.
My eldest two, one wants to be a doctor.
Mm.
He is applying to med school this spring. My daughter wants to be a physician assistant, and they both love science.
That's so
But
fun.
they had really no formal exposure to the sciences until 8th grade.
Mhm.
And then because they could do math, because they were critical thinkers, they thrived in science.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they absolutely love it. They'll call me from college and talk about how beautiful chemistry is, and
Mm. That's
they
amazing.
they just love it. So I don't think, sometimes I think that we push children into things before it's necessary. Just like, as a first-time parent, maybe we want our kids to be the earliest walkers, or,
Mhm.
we want
Mhm.
them to crawl, or we want them to talk and be the earliest. But early doesn't always mean better. And kids can take their time to grow into some of these things. And when their brains are ready for the higher level science, when their brains are ready to find it beautiful, when you've given the solid foundation, I
Mhm.
don't think we need to fear.
And we'll be right back. What if this summer did more than just fill your team's time? What if it played a foundational role in who they're becoming? At Excel Summer Leadership Camp, students step into a transformational adventure experience designed to help them discover their calling, discern what truly matters, and learn how to live it out with wisdom and courage. Through outdoor adventure like camping, whitewater rafting, and rock climbing, intentional community, and Christ centered mentorship, Excel Summer Leadership Camp equips young adults to grow in their leadership, their character, and their faith. Right now, you can get $100 off your next camp session with code FPEA 2026. Learn more and apply today at theexcelcamp.org. And now back to the show. I like that comment a lot. And I think that sometimes what we're afraid of drives us to push our kids, and they end up, I hate to use the word hate, but I think they end up hating education and the thought of something that they may not be good at because they weren't ready for it when we presented it to them. And so I feel like, being able to watch my own children reach those places naturally was a lesson for me, because not only did I come from a traditional education myself growing up, I taught in the education system before I became a homeschool mom. So, it was really hard for me to get some of that out of my head and out of my way. But once you see it happen with your kids like that, it's like, that this was the right way to allow them to naturally become interested in the things and at the right time for them, and they embrace it. And I think that's one of the beauties of home education. And so how many are you still teaching at home? How old is your youngest?
So my youngest just turned 8.
Oh, see.
Yeah.
You still have a little ways to go.
Yes.
Fantastic.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I love homeschooling. It gets better and better every year. It's just so fun.
We get better at it every year, right? As moms. So as far as then reaching the point where, because I know that you've written about home education, and I know you have a love towards really helping families who want to high school successfully with their kids, homeschool high school. When did you start moving into a place of feeling like this is time for me to help other people get there and share my experiences and encourage others? How did you come to that place?
That's such a good question. So I think, first of all, I think the teenage years are very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And we can build a wonderful foundation for our children. And in a way, I experienced this myself being in the public school system, where my parents did give me a great foundation.
Mm.
But then you can be under such pressure in a school environment that our kids can be in an environment that makes things harder for them than maybe what it needs to be to make the kind of choices that they should make in a time that's very vulnerable and formative. And I heard a lot of people talking about the younger years, but I think the teenage years are so important. And I think actually, if I had to choose between the two, it was fine for my kids to be in a play-based preschool. But I think being in a high school environment that might not be aligned with our values, or seeing some of the statistics about what high schoolers are facing right now, even in Christian schools, what they're exposed to, I think I wanted another way. And I think it's intimidating because the stakes are high.
Yeah.
So how can we encourage parents? Also, I maybe went through the high school years with a little too much confidence. So I homeschooled through high school, and I thought, well, my child is out of the box. We have done out of the box learning. My son could play 6 instruments. He started a lawn business. He built a fire tower with some folks in the homeschooling community, restored a vintage Land Rover. This is going to make him really attractive to colleges, and we're going to get a lot of scholarships. Well, that wasn't exactly true. There was a gap between our expectations and what reality was. And I realized that I felt like there was a lack of information in the homeschooling community for those older years for folks who are interested first in college. Like, we knew nothing about standardized tests and how to navigate that, how to get ready for college applications. The fact that a lot of colleges, not all, but do want to see rigorous coursework, depending on the college you want to go to.
Right.
My kids wanted to go to more competitive colleges, or if you want to go to a Christian college so my son originally wanted to go to a Christian college, a liberal arts college, and it seemed perfect. And he was invited to their honors program. He got They courted him, but then the total tuition for 1 year was 65,000 per year. And it was
That's
just
crazy.
so thinking a little bit more strategically about if those are the places your child wants to land,
Mhm.
what kind of things are they going to be looking for so you can get those scholarships
Right.
and to set them up best for that. Also, now my third child doesn't necessarily want to do a traditional college path, and
Mhm.
not everyone needs to. There are lots of options for certification programs, apprenticeships,
Yeah.
community college. And that whole world is its own oyster as well.
Mhm.
I also found that homeschoolers had a lot of misinformation about things like dual enrollment that can save them a lot of time and money.
Yeah.
And so we had to learn things the hard way. My son's doing great. He is at Texas A&M, which is well ranked. He has been doing amazingly well. He got a 4.0 in advanced classes. He's just doing awesome. Ultimately, the Lord is directing our kids' paths and ours. But I just wanted to, some of the things that we didn't know cause stress and cost money
Yeah.
and made things hard. So the Lord brought people into my life to come beside me, a dual enrollment director with 25 years of experience,
Mm.
to show kids all of the paths available, not just college, but all paths.
Right.
Things we can do to help our kids start to find their vocation in high school, if that's their
Mm.
choice.
Mhm.
Also, what can we do if kids are unsure? So, just providing some direction for that path.
Right. And so you came along and began to then just speak those things into other people's lives and help in that way, or were you writing about that in some arena that people were able to connect with you and ask questions, or just feel like you were going to give them encouragement and guidance? How did that come to fruition?
So, I had been writing for Wild and Free
Hmm.
for years, since the earlier days, maybe 2015.
Okay.
And then people were asking me, well, what comes next? What comes
Hmm.
next beyond like nature and wonder? Because we want more scaffolding
Hmm.
for the
Hmm.
older years. And so I think that it was friends who asked questions. And then Ginny connected me with
Yeah.
her agent and said, I think people would like a book on this. And
Mm.
then the Lord opened doors and people came beside me, a college advisor who gave me some of his best tips on earning scholarships and managing the high school years if your child is college bound. I connected with homeschooling families from all over the country and the different ways that they have approached high school.
Yeah.
And I just want to give families the encouragement to keep going because it's so beautiful and so worth it. That doesn't mean it's always easy, but
Mm.
high school can be a time where people pivot and decide that they don't know if they can keep going. And I wanted to show them that they can.
Yeah. And that's the encouragement I think a lot of the time that I find that parents really do need, because I feel like, either it shifts from what they found was successful in elementary and maybe even some of middle school. And, I've seen students really struggle. I've seen parents really struggle because they didn't feel like they could continue in educating their children the same way, or giving them the freedom to educate in the same way. And, I've seen families who, as hobbies, their kids would be so involved in something, whether it was music or theater or, art, things that they were, very, very well educated and trained in because it's what they were doing when they were younger. And then get to high school or even to that step at college. And the parents are like, well, we wanted you to do this in homeschool so you could be a doctor, or we wanted you to do this so you could be something. So, talk a little bit about your thoughts about what your children are naturally inclined to do and using high school to, like you said, kind of help guide them to that place of what is it that they actually want to do and how to use those talents or gifts or callings, whatever those things may be, And for parents who have higher maybe expectations in their mind of what, sometimes I think homeschool moms feel like a failure if their kids don't perform at that level or go in the same direction as what we were anticipating, because some families will see it as a failure if you don't do college the normal, traditional way, or if you approach your vocation in a different way. So just how do you encourage families to help their kids really find what their strengths are, what their vocation is, what their calling is? How do you encourage them? Because that's hard, especially for people who've not already had older children. I think it's a little bit easier for us as we see our kids get older. And by the time you get to like the fifth kid, maybe you feel like, oh, it's all going to work out. But when you're walking through it the first time, right? So how do you help people maybe feel more comfortable in those ways?
Well, I think first of all, when there's the proverb about raising our children according to their way, and when
Mm-hmm.
they're old, they will not depart from it. The actual translation is according to their way. And the ancient rabbis understood that to mean don't ask a baker to be a doctor.
Mm,
Each of our children are born as individual persons. And it isn't fair to them. It's not loving. It's not Christ-like to expect them to be anyone other than who God made them.
mm,
And C.S. Lewis points out in Mere Christianity, salt brings out the flavor of each dish. And it doesn't make everything the same.
mm.
It makes it more flavorful according to the way it's made, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we want for our kids. So I don't think we should say every one of our kids needs to be a doctor or approach life in a certain kind of way. I think there are some biblical principles. Like for us, we want our kids to do something where they can provide for themselves and have something to give to those in need. That's a
Mm-hmm.
biblical principle.
Yeah.
But, we can have principles around work ethic, that
Mm-hmm.
work is something that God ordained as good. We don't have to
Mm,
live into an escapist mentality, and that we can do all things for the glory of God. It doesn't matter what that is. All things can be done for the glory of God.
mm,
And so all work is in that way holy when done unto the Lord.
right.
And so I think that's the first part, not putting expectations for all of our kids to be the same. Secondly, I think it's really important to, and I write about this in the book, to allow our children to explore job shadowing, possibly internships,
Mm-hmm.
where they can start to test out things they might be interested in to see, is this the right fit for me?
Mm,
That's something that I wish we would have done more of with my first. And also colleges like to see that. They like to see
mm,
if your child is on a college path, that they are exploring or investing in the career that they are interested in. I think that's a good time just to test things out and to see. I also have an inventory in my book that parents can do with their kids, which is aligning your life vision with your career path. Because sometimes I think we have this idea that our hobby should become our career.
mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's always true either, right? Because
Right.
sometimes when we try to make our hobby our career, we can lose the joy of our hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, another myth that I think parents believe is your strongest subject in school should be what you study in college or,
Mm,
you
yeah.
know. So if you're good at English, that means you should be an English major.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're good at math, you must be an engineer. You must be destined to be an engineer.
Right.
Where it's like, okay, well, maybe we use that as a starting point. But your strongest subject in school does not have to become your career.
Mm, true.
So I have an inventory on how we can align, like, what do I want? What kind of work do I think aligns with the vision I want for my life? Also considering things like college debt. I talk a lot in the book about the college debt crisis.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to pursue that could get us into debt that might make it more difficult to have the life we ultimately would like?
Yeah.
So I think
I
it's
think,
multifaceted.
yeah, I think that it's true though. And I think that one of the things where there could be a breakdown in our high school years with our kids is, when you don't take the time to talk about what you do want your life to look like 5 years from now. after you graduate? Where do you want to be? What do you want your home to be like and to look like? And I think that I know that for sure that's not part of the mindset of our public and private education. It's all, going through high school is all about what do you want to do in college and what do you want your career to be? And I think that, a lot of the time we don't even know that. We don't even know that when we're starting high school. I did not know that when I was a freshman in high school. I didn't know it when I was a senior in high school. I did not know.
Exactly.
I actually did think more as a person naturally about what I wanted my life to be down the road, but I didn't know how to get from point A to point B because there was nobody, helping to guide that direction because that was a life plan, not a college plan, right? So,
Yes. That is so true. And I write about that in my book too, because I read
mhm,
an article that stated that most people don't know how to set goals for themselves long term. So throughout my book, I do have periodic inventories
mhm,
about what do I even want my family life to look like? What do I want these high school years to look like? Let's dream. What are
mhm,
the things I want to impart in my children before they leave home? And it
okay,
doesn't just have to be about academics.
right,
What do I want them to know? What's songs, what hymns do I want them to know that they can carry with them? What practical
mhm,
skills do I want? I was raised in a way that school was the thing. Your job is to be a student. So I came into adulthood. I didn't even know how to cut vegetables.
yeah, because
I
your
mean,
job
so
was school and homework, right?
school and homework.
Yeah,
And like, bless my parents, they were very kind to make all our meals and do all of our
mhm,
dishes and things like that. And
yeah,
I was very active in school and extracurriculars, but I
mhm,
didn't know really how to do the practical skills. So for my family, we wanted to teach our kids that too,
mhm,
knowing how to cook, knowing how to do laundry,
that's
and just
important.
having an overall vision for what we want our kids to no, before they leave home. It was funny when I was at the new student conference at Texas A&M with my
Mhm.
son, one of the students talked about she had been washing her clothes with fabric softener because she had never been taught the difference between laundry detergent
Oh, no.
and fabric softener, and her
Oh,
clothes
no.
started having issues. And
Uh-huh.
she,
That's so
yes.
is those skills are so important. And I think too, when you're talking about those things, preparing them with basic life skills, but like also how do you take what is the vision for your home and your family? And how do you encourage your students, your children, in your high school years to create a vision that goes beyond their academics and beyond their education? How do you encourage them to think about what they want their life to look like down the road versus, just an education that's going to take them to a career path? And I think that that's missing in so many of our home education scenarios. I think it's missing in our, public and private education. And I think that that's where we end up finding this that people are unhappy with career
Mhm.
choices. I know when I graduated from high school, I was told multiple times that people don't usually end up doing what they get a degree in college. They do something else. And I can't tell you
Mhm.
how many people that's true for that I know
Mhm.
in my life, so but it was a path, and it was only, you could be a librarian, you could be a teacher, you could be a secretary, you could be, a nurse. Like there were so many little boxes that people would put you in, like you said, based on what your best subjects were, based on what your interest might be. And I was terrified to make a decision about it because I thought this is forever for me. And none of it lined up with my life vision. None of it lined up with what I wanted to do because I wanted to be a mom and raise my
Mhm.
kids, and I wanted to have a lot of kids.
Mhm.
So I wanted to do something that was not on that career plan. So, I think helping our kids navigate through the high school years is such a huge. Sometimes people are so focused on getting the basics in as the foundation for what we need in elementary school, right? And then the rest of it's going to soar through. But the foundation in high school is another really important landing page for me. And then how do we get our kids from that place to their life vision, So,
Yeah. I think my daughter, she really wants to be a mom, but
mhm.
she'd like to have the opportunity to possibly work part time here and there,
Yeah.
which is why she wants to do the physician assistant path
Mhm.
because it has flexibility, it's been in
Yeah.
demand, and it's not a huge time commitment. A lot of people say, "Why don't you go to med school?"
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to go to med school. Also, because we learned about dual enrollment and all the ways to earn college credit in high school, she could
Mhm.
graduate college in 3 years
Yeah.
and then finish a PA program without too much extra time.
Mhm.
And so I think there are things that we can do to be strategic with our kids.
Yeah.
And also in high school, if they can, I love dual enrollment because we didn't start it until our kids, well, until my daughter was a junior. I didn't know much about it with my son.
Mhm.
But instead of being in a co-op or me doing something myself, she could take a science class through dual enrollment and earn college credit.
Right. Right.
And then not just high school credit because dual enrollment
Mhm.
is both. And then that saves us money. A
Yeah.
lot of states subsidize it, which is amazing.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
also it helps you start to get a little bit of that career exploration too.
Yeah.
When the stakes maybe aren't quite so high as college. Because if
Mhm.
you take a class and you realize, oh, I don't like college math, this is not going to be for me. And a lot of
Yeah.
kids change their major. You can start to get some of that information and input then in high school.
Right. Processing it that way first. Yeah. Very
And
true.
Ginny Yurch and I have talked about certifications. Her daughter, Vivian,
Mhm.
got a certification in personal training,
Yeah.
which a lot of people would get a master's in. It was
Yeah.
her first exam ever. She absolutely blew it out of the water, like rocked the
I know.
exam, and
That's
then
such a
could
great story.
yeah, so our kids can do certifications if they want, which can be stacked to other things. They don't have to go straight to college.
Mhm.
If they're not someone who knows for sure what they want to do, and that's okay. We shouldn't have our kids on the same trajectory. Taking more time is okay.
Yeah.
And that's part of the process. So
Mhm. I love that. And I love the way that I think, if nothing else, that between homeschooling, between college debt crisis that our nation has experienced and our students, I think that there are a lot of things right now that are pushing us to think more about how alternatively we can be successful and do the things that we want to do. And it's not, I think that there's a lot to be said for people who have an entrepreneurial mindset and can do that, but not everybody thinks that way either. And I think, there are so many things we can do that fall, like you said, into the line of certifications or things that are a little bit more vocational with less, financial commitment. There's so many ways that we can do this. And I think that the education information being correct and being disseminated is huge. And like you said, there's still a lot of people who get to high school and they're not really sure how to go from there to the next step. So I think your book is going to be crucial for some of those families and so helpful, to people as they're starting to really navigate high school for their kids. When would you suggest someone picking your book up and starting to process that information?
I think okay, so my friend Leah Bowden, who wrote Modern Miss Mason,
Mhm.
told me you should have people get your book for sure in the middle school years because waiting till high school she felt was too late
Yeah.
because you can start to get a vision of how you want your family life to look.
Mhm.
And I think that is a good time, early middle school years, as you're starting to think ahead and you can feel like you have that scaffolding in place
Yeah.
before and confidence before heading into those teen years,
Yeah,
high
I
school
think so.
years.
Yeah. And so my experience here too is that a lot of the students actually start some of the dual enrollment courses and things in middle school years now because there's some of that that's available to them. I
Wow.
know at least in our state that, there's some options where people have moved up and their grade doesn't count. They're just, they're older, they're in an older grade than their age, if that makes sense. So they can start a little bit earlier. So what would traditionally be, a younger child is already starting to explore some of those options. And I know a lot of people who very with good intention, want their 7th and 8th grader to already have a mindset about what they want to do when they grow up. There's got to be a plan. And so I do think that getting that information into the hands of moms and even students at that point to educate themselves on some of their options too. I think that's important.
I talk a lot about the various options from online classes, co-ops, hybrid programs,
Mm-hmm.
options that you can explore through edX where you can audit college classes. They
Yeah.
don't count as college credit. I think the one caveat to consider with dual enrollment is that your child will be in a class with older people
Mm-hmm.
and you might not like the course content. So my daughter did philosophy at a public university here,
Mm-hmm.
and the professor was an atheist
Mm.
and he believed that life was completely meaningless.
Mm.
She would go home and study. She would read the great philosophers and they
Yeah.
would debate. It was actually almost like the movie God's Not Dead. Like you think that that's fake.
Yeah. Yep.
But she did. And she would make jokes about that movie because she felt like, anyway, the professor actually liked it because the kids who normally sat with their eyes glazed over they wanted to talk about these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so they talk about God and the universe and the reasons why, like the proof for his existence. And
Mm.
she got a 97% in the class. But not every student wants to debate the professor.
Yeah.
And for some students, that could be really bad for their souls
Yeah.
to be filled with that kind of information that's dark and unbiblical,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't really hold a high regard for human life.
Yeah.
So I would just say choose carefully because the high school years are also formative.
Yeah.
And so do you approve of this, what your child is
Consuming.
consuming?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very true. And so let's talk about, let's go ahead and tell our listeners the name of your book and when to look for that to come out.
Yeah, thank you so much. So the name of the
Sure.
book is Their Future is Shining Bright.
Mm-hmm.
It was based on an optimistic post-World War II phrase.
Yeah.
A guide through homeschooling in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's coming out in April, but I'm super excited because it's available for pre-order. I was supposed to announce, well, by the time this is out, it will probably be. Okay, we had an Amazon problem. Okay, it's available for pre-order, and I have some really cool pre-order bonuses coming out with the book.
Cool. Great.
So one is with an interview with a dual enrollment advisor with 25 years of experience, who I also collaborated with on the book, who gives his best advice on the various pathways.
Okay.
Another is on finding community in a lonely world from a friend in California who's been wildly successful in forming groups and community.
Mm-hmm.
The next is with Aaron Lochner of the Opt-Out family on managing screens, technology, phones during the teenage years. That's something that I'm very passionate about, but didn't get into a lot. I didn't get into in the book, actually.
Okay.
And then the fourth one is with Leah Bowden, who wrote Modern Miss Mason. And it's about raising our children according to their individual way, and also the importance of the arts and the humanities for our souls and the souls of our children. That's
fantastic. So those are part of your pre-order bonuses.
Yes. And if you go to my website, Rachel Kovac, KOVAC.com, everyone thinks my last name ends in a K, but it actually doesn't. I'm going to be having downloads with inventories, printables, a transcript. That's all coming soon, where you can get a transcript, see a sample, have some downloads on planning checklists and things like that will be available all on the website. The pre-order bonus you can find through my website. And yeah.
So that's great. Well, thank you. And I want to say before we wrap up, I love to ask my guests to share something that was a quote or just a verse, something that has resonated with them, maybe through challenging times, through years where you were just like, I can do this. Or, what would you share with someone to give encouragement to them, to give them a sound bite that would stick and maybe bring some encouragement to them along the way?
Okay. Hang on. Oh, I put my phone down. I have my quote. Hold on one second. Okay. So a quote that has been close to my heart while homeschooling, and also as I've written
Mm,
this book, is by A.W. Tozer,
mm,
which is, let us practice the fine art of making every work a priestly ministration. Let us believe that God is in all our simple deeds and
mm.
learn to find him there. Just
I
knowing
love
that
that.
whatever we're doing in homeschooling, if we're cooking for our kids, Jesus said, feed the hungry. And in everything that we're doing, we are doing it unto the Lord. And we can learn to find him there in the smallest things, in the hard days. And also, I just recently read about the life of Martin Luther's wife.
Mm,
And after his passing, she went through very difficult situations. She had been the heir to his will, and the Saxon law didn't recognize it. So she was in poverty and faced all kinds of hardships. But she said, I cling to Christ like a burr on a cloth. And I just think every day we just
that's,
have to cling to Christ.
I love that comment. Actually, that's a powerful and profound kind of statement. Like a burr on a cloth. That's amazing.
I might not be getting that exactly right, but that was the
Yeah.
essence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for just coming on the podcast and sharing about your thoughts on home education and getting your kids there to those places of, finding what is going to be the most important steps for them to go into high school and beyond into their life. Really looking forward to seeing your book in print and would love to just maybe have a chance to explore some more conversations about that with you in the future.
I would absolutely love that. Thank you for
Yeah.
the work that you do, which is just mind-blowingly amazing.
Oh, it's fun. Thanks for listening to the Not by the Book podcast from the Florida Parent Educators Association. To learn more about homeschooling in Florida or to find resources to help you on this amazing journey, visit our website at FPEA.com. If you have any suggestions for future guests, contact me, Suzanne, at notbythebook@fpea.com. Thanks again for listening, and be inspired to live your life not by the book.